Hello!
And welcome to Larry's Library.
Hello, welcome to Larry's Library. We're going to continue to read Pinocchio. That badly behaved piece of... Close your mouth, boys. Badly behaved boy. Speaking of badly behaved boys, said Pinocchio was a very badly behaved puppet. But he burned his feet off. We heard that yesterday. We're going to do 3 chapters today, I believe. This chapter is Geppetto returns home, makes the puppet new feet, and gives him the breakfast that the poor man had brought for himself. Also, chapter 7. Poor Pinocchio, whose eyes were still half shut from sleep, had not as yet discovered that his feet were burnt off. The moment, therefore, that he heard his father's voice, he slipped off his stool to run and open the door. But after stumbling 2 or 3 times, he fell his whole length on the floor, and the noise he made in falling was as if a sack of wooden ladles had been thrown from a 5th story. "Open the door!" shouted Geppetto from the street. "Dear Papa, I cannot," answered the puppet, crying and rolling about on the ground. "Why cannot you?" "Because my feet have been eaten." "And who has eaten your feet?" "The cat," said Pinocchio, seeing the cat, who was amusing herself by making some shavings dance with her forepaws. "Open the door, I tell you," repeated Geppetto. "If you don't, when I get into the house, you shall have the cat from me." "I cannot stand up. Believe me, oh, poor me, poor me. I shall have to walk on my knees for the rest of my life." Geppetto, believing that all this lamentation was only another of the puppet's tricks, thought of a means of putting an end to it, and climbing up the wall, he got in at the window. He was very angry, and at first he did nothing but scold, but when he saw his Pinocchio lying on the ground and really without feet, he was quite overcome. He took him in his arms and began to kiss and caress him and to say 1,000 endearing things to him, and as the big tears ran down his cheeks, he said, sobbing, "My little Pinocchio, how did you manage to burn your feet?" "I don't know, Papa, but believe me, it has been an infernal night that I shall remember as long as I live. It thundered and lightened, and I was very hungry, and then the talking cricket said to me, 'It serves you right, you have been wicked and you deserve it.' And I said to him, 'Take care, cricket,' and he said, 'You are a puppet and you have a wooden head,' and I threw the handle of a hammer at him and he died. But the fault was his, for I didn't wish to kill him, and the proof of it is that I put an earthenware saucer on a brazier of burning embers. But a chicken flew out and said, 'Adieu until we meet again, and many compliments to all at home,' and I got still more hungry, for which reason that little old man in the night kept opening the window, said to me, 'Come underneath and hold out your hat,' and poured a basin full of water on my head, because asking for a little bread isn't a disgrace, is it? And I returned home at once, and because I was very hungry, I put my feet on the brazier to dry them, and then you returned, and I found they were burnt off, and I am always hungry, but I have no longer any feet." And poor Pinocchio began to cry and to roar so loudly that it was heard 5 miles off. Sounds like my kids. Geppetto, who from all this jumbled account had only understood one thing, which was that the puppet was dying of hunger, drew from his pocket 3 pears, and giving them to him said, "These 3 pears were intended for my breakfast, but I will give them to you willingly. Eat them, and I hope they will do you good. If you wish me to eat them, be kind enough to peel them for me." "Peel them?" said Geppetto, astonished. "I should never have thought, my boy, that you were so dainty and fastidious. That is bad. In this world we should accustom ourselves from childhood to like and to eat everything, for there is no saying to what we may be brought. There are so many chances." "You are no doubt right," interrupted Pinocchio, "but I will never eat fruit that has not been peeled. I cannot bear rind." So that good Geppetto fetched a knife and, arming himself with patience, peeled the 3 pears and put the rind on a corner of the table. Having eaten the first pear in 2 mouthfuls, Pinocchio was about to throw away the core, but Geppetto caught hold of his arm and said to him, "Do not throw it away. In this world everything may be of use." "But core, I am determined I will not eat," shouted the puppet, turning upon him like a viper. "Who knows? There are so many chances," repeated Geppetto, without losing his temper. And so the 3 cores, instead of being thrown out of the window, were placed on the corner of the table together with the 3 rinds. Having eaten, or rather having devoured, the 3 pears, Pinocchio yawned tremendously, and then said in a fretful tone, "I am as hungry as ever." "But, my boy, I have nothing more to give you." "Nothing? Really? Nothing?" "I have only the rind and the cores of the 3 pears." One must have patience, said Pinocchio. If there is nothing else, I will eat the rind. And he began to chew it. At first he made a wry face, but then one after another he quickly disposed of the rinds, and after the rinds even the cores. And when he had eaten up everything, he clapped his hands on his sides in his satisfaction and said joyfully, "Ah, now I feel comfortable." "You see now," observed Geppetto, "that I was right when I said to you that it did not do to accustom ourselves to be too particular or too dainty in our tastes. We can never know, my dear boy, what may happen to us. There are so many chances." Chapter 8. Geppetto makes Pinocchio new feet and sells his own coat to buy him a spelling book. Bless you.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Next, and hello, Mark. No sooner had the puppet appeased his hunger than he began to cry and to grumble because he wanted a pair of new feet. But Geppetto, to punish him for his naughtiness, allowed him to cry and to despair for half the day. He then said to him, "Why should I make you new feet? To enable you perhaps to escape again from home?" "I promise you," said the puppet, sobbing, "that for the future I will be good." "All boys," replied Geppetto, "when they are bent upon obtaining something, say the same thing." "I promise you that I will go to school and that I will study and learn to good character." "All boys, when they are bent on obtaining something, repeat the same story." "But I am not like other boys. I am better than all of them, and I will always speak the truth. I promise you, Papa, that I will learn a trade and that I will be the consolation and staff of your old age." Geppetto, although he put on a severe face, had his eyes full of tears and his heart big with sorrow at seeing his poor Pinocchio in such a pitiable state. He did not say another word, but taking his tools and 2 small pieces of well-seasoned wood, he set to work with great diligence. In less than an hour the feet were finished. 2 little feet, swift, well knit, and nervous. They might have been modeled by an artist of genius. Geppetto then said to the puppet, "Shut your eyes and go to sleep." And Pinocchio shut his eyes and pretended to be asleep. And whilst he pretended to sleep, Geppetto, with a little glue which he had melted in an eggshell, fastened his feet in their place, and it was so well done that not even a trace could be seen of where they were joined. No sooner had the puppet discovered that he had feet than he jumped down from the table on which he was lying and began to spring and to cut 1,000 capers about the room, as if he had gone mad with the greatness of his delight. "To reward you for what you have done for me," said Pinocchio to his father, "I will go to school at once." "Good boy. But to go to school I shall want some clothes." Geppetto, who was poor and who had not so much as a farthing in his pocket, then made him a little dress of flowered paper, a pair of shoes from the bark of a tree, and a cap of the crumb of bread. Pinocchio ran immediately to look at himself in a crock of water, and he was so pleased with his appearance that he said, strutting about like a peacock, "I look quite like a gentleman." "Yes, indeed," answered Geppetto, "for bear in mind that it is not fine clothes that make the gentleman, but rather clean clothes." "By the by," added the puppet, "to go to school I am still in want. Indeed, I am without the best thing and most important." "And what is it?" "I have no spelling book." "You are right. But what shall we do to get one?" "It is quite easy. We have only to go to the booksellers and buy it." "And the money?" "I have got none." "No more have I," added the good old man very sadly. And Pinocchio, although he was a very merry boy, became sad also, because poverty, when it is real poverty, is understood by everybody, even by boys. "Well, patience!" exclaimed Geppetto all at once, rising to his feet and putting on his old fustian coat, all patched and darned. He ran out of the house. He returned shortly, holding in his hand a spelling book for Pinocchio. But the old coat was gone. The poor man was in his shirt sleeves, and out of doors it was snowing. "And the coat, Papa?" "I have sold it." "Why did you sell it?" "Because I found it too hot." Pinocchio understood this answer in an instant, and unable to restrain the impulse of his good heart, he sprang up, and throwing his arms around Geppetto's neck, he began kissing him again and again. And Chapter 9. Pinocchio sells his spelling book that he may go and see a puppet show. Yeah, did you hear it? He sells his spelling book. As soon as it had stopped snowing, Pinocchio set out for school with his fine spelling book under his arm. As he went along, he began to imagine 1,000 things in his little brain and to build 1,000 castles in the air, one more beautiful than the other. And talking to himself, he said, "Today at school I will learn to read at once, then tomorrow I will begin to write, and the day after tomorrow to cipher. Then with my acquirements I will earn a great deal of money, and with that first money I have in my pocket I will immediately buy for my papa a beautiful new cloth coat. But what am I saying? Cloth, indeed! It shall be all made of gold and silver, and it shall have diamond buttons. That poor man really deserves it, for to buy me books and have me taught he has remained in his shirt sleeves, and in this cold. It is only fathers who are capable of such sacrifices." Whilst he was saying this with great emotion, he thought that he heard music in the distance that sounded like fifes and the beating of a drum. Fum, fum, fee, 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 zum, zum, zum. He stopped and listened. The sounds came from the end of a cross street that took to a little village on the seashore. "What can that music be? What a pity that I have to go to school, or else—" And he remained irresolute. It was, however, necessary to come to a decision. Should he go to school, or should he go after the fifes? "Today I will go hear the fifes, and tomorrow I will go to school," finally decided the young scapegrace, shrugging his shoulders. The more he ran, the nearer he came the sounds of the fifes and the beating of the big drum. Fee, 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 zum, zum, zum. At last he found himself in the middle of a square quite full of people who were all crowding round a building made of wood and canvas and painted 1,000 colors. "What is that building?" asked Pinocchio, turning to a little boy who belonged to the place. "Read the placard. It is all written, and then you will know." "I would read it willingly, but it so happens that today I don't know how to read." "Bravo, blockhead! Then I will read it to you. The writing on that placard in those letters, red as fire, is Great Puppet Theatre." "Has the play begun long?" "It is beginning now." "How much does it cost to go in?" 2 pence. Pinocchio, who was in a fever of curiosity, lost all control of himself, and without any shame he said to the little boy to whom he was talking, "Would you lend me 2 pence until tomorrow?" "I would lend them to you willingly," said the other, taking him off, "but it so happens that today I cannot give them to you." "I will sell you my jacket for 2 pence," the puppet then said to him. "What do you think that I could do with a jacket of flowered paper? If there was rain and it got wet, it would be impossible to get it off my back." "Will you buy my shoes?" "They would only be of use to light the fire." "How much will you give me for my cap?" "That would be a wonderful acquisition indeed, a cap of breadcrumb. There would be a risk of the mice coming to eat it whilst it was on my head." Pinocchio was on thorns. He was on the point of making another offer, but he had not the courage. He hesitated, felt irresolute and remorseful. At last he said, "Will you give me 2 pence for this new spelling book?" "I am a boy, and I don't buy from boys," replied his little interlocutor, who had much more sense than he had. "I will buy the spelling book for 2 pence," called out a hawker of old clothes who had been listening to the conversation, and the book was sold there and then. And to think that poor Geppetto had remained at home, trembling with cold in his shirt sleeves, that he might buy his son a spelling book. The end. Chapter 7, 8, and 9 done. Next, chapter 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, is the puppets recognize their brother Pinocchio and receive him with delight, but at that moment their master fire eater makes his appearance.
Wait, what?
That's the next chapter. Pinocchio, where's Pinocchio? There's Pinocchio right there. There's Pinocchio right there. This has been Larry's Library. Thank you very much. Let me know what you think. Add comments.
I got a new stuffed animal today.
Yeah, keep your hands clean.
Bye.
Bye.
I named her Chloe.
Where's
Chloe.
headed?
I named her